All right, so I'm recording this video. It's the second video for week 12. Apparently, the first go round, the sound did not upload. So we're going to try this again, round two. All right, write an equation of a line given its slope and y-intercept. Okay, so a linear equation in slope-intercept form. So we'll write that down in slope-intercept form or format. Looks like this. Y equals mx plus b. It's an equation because we have an equal sign. And when you write your equation in this format, if you were to graph it, it creates a line. So that's why they call it a linear equation. So m is always your slope, and the b is always your y-intercept when you're working in slope-intercept format. So when they say write an equation in slope-intercept form for a line with y-intercept of -4 and slope of 5, they've given you your m and they've given you the b. So they've given you all the ingredients to write this thing out. So we're going to write it. Y is equal to, so the slope is 5. That 5 right there is going to go in for m. X always sits next to it so that your slope becomes the coefficient or the number in front of that X variable. And our y-intercept is a -4. So instead of a plus sign, we're going to go -4. And if you were to put this into a graphing calculator and graph this, it would create a straight line, actually. And it would be a straight line that would cross the y-axis at -4. And your slope would actually be up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. So it would look like a line if you were to graph this on a graphing calculator. That's a terrible line, but it would look something like that. So this is where it crosses the y-axis. That's your b. And your slope is going to be your m, which in this case happens to be 5. So in ALEKS, you will type in y equals 5x minus 4 and walk away. Let's see if they give us another one. Yep, write an equation of a line given its slope and y-intercept. So pause the video and see if I can make this a little clearer for you and write out your linear equation. I'll put the little standard format there. Okay, so if you're back, hopefully we've got b is -3 and m is -3/2. So hopefully you wrote something like this, y equals -3/2 x minus 3. So this is your slope and this is your y-intercept. This is your m and this is your b. So they start off giving you all the ingredients, which is great, right? We have all the ingredients that we need. But then of course, we can never just stay simple like that. So we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form given a slope and a point. Okay, so they give us the slope, that's 5, but they don't give us the b, all right? That's the question mark, but they give us a point that this line runs through. They say, hey, it runs through 2 comma 5, and it's got a slope of 5. So we could go, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. We could make that line, but we need the b. Where does this thing really run into? The y-axis. And I just drew kind of a simple sketch here, but I can't really tell what that is. So we're going to use the formula to help us crank out this b. So this point here, right here, this is a coordinate 2 comma 5. That can be a temporary x and y. So this formula says I need a y, and you're saying, okay, I'll give you 5. I need a slope. You say, okay, got your slope. Needs a temporary x. We'll use the 2. And then we'll find out what the b is. So 5 equals 5 times 2 plus b, right? So 5 here becomes your y. Your slope of 5 goes in for m. The temporary x, say this is an xy, is 2. And so let's solve this equation for b. So 5 equals 5 times 2 is 10 plus b, or what number, plus 10 would be equal to 5? Well, if you don't know that off the top of your head, just do the algebra. So b is equal to negative 5. So now you have b, and you got m. There's lots of 5's here. So now you can write your equation. Y equals the slope of 5. Don't forget the x. And we have found the negative 5 to be our b. So when I drew this line, it was probably pretty inaccurate. It's probably crossing somewhere down here at negative 5, according to our algebra. So if I had a piece of graph paper, it probably would have gone a little better for me. Okay, let's give you one to practice. Write an equation in slope-intercept form given slope and a point. So here's your slope. Don't forget that's m. And use negative 10, negative 6 as your temporary x and y. And use that formula to help you find the b. Okay, if you're back, let's use this formula to help us find b. This is the question mark. That's the mystery. So negative 6 says, I see you need a y, and you're like, yep, I'll take you, negative 6. Our slope is going to be 1/2 times temporarily negative 10, which is going to show up and be x for us. So think about what we're doing here. We're going to put negative 6 in for y, negative 10 in for x, 1/2 in for m, and then we're going to find out what's the b. So negative 6 equals, well, 1/2 of 10 is 5, and a positive times a negative makes a negative plus b. Okay, we want to know what b is, or negative 5 plus what number would give us negative 6. So let's add 5 to both sides, and negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1 equals b. So now we're going to rewrite a fresh linear equation. Okay, so y equals, we need some slope. Well, that's 1/2. X comes next, we need a y-intercept. Well, that's negative 1. So now we've written a fresh linear equation in what's called slope-intercept format. So here's slope, here's the y-intercept. Slope and y-intercept. Okay, so let's see what happens next to us. Oh, okay, they're going to give us a visual. Write the equation of the line given the graph. These are my favorite. I'm a very visual learner. If you're a visual learner, hopefully this will go well for you. So you need 2 ingredients. You need where does it cross the y-axis, which is right here. This is your b. And you need your slope, which is sometimes referred to as rise over run. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So a couple ways to do this. When I look for rise and run, I look at this line from top to bottom, and I find the lowest point, which is this guy right here. And I start here if I'm going to count it out. If I'm going to count out my slope, I'm going to start at the lowest point, and then I'm going to get to here. How do I do that? Well, I have to rise out of bed. So you're going to rise up. So when you're rising up, it's positive. And I went up 1, 2, 3, 4. But then I turned left. And when I turn left to get to my destination, that's going to be a negative sign. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5. So my slope is really negative 4/5. That's my slope. And my y-intercept is negative 3. That's my b. Now, let's say you have trouble doing the rise and run. I'm hoping in a previous, let's see here. Yeah, I think in a previous video, in the first video of week 12, we learned how to find slope from y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if you have trouble counting this out, just identify these points. This point is I move 0 on the x and down to negative 3 on the y. That's point 1. This point here, I got to work a little harder. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 7. So it's over 5, down negative 7. So these are my 2 addresses, my 2 coordinates. I'm going to call them xy, x1, or excuse me, xy, xy, x sub 1, x sub 1, meaning I see these first, and x sub 2, y sub 2, meaning I see those second. So we're going to hopefully try to get this negative 4/5 without doing the rise and the run, with just using this formula. So just identify 2 points on the line, which we did. and then we're going to pop it into this equation. So it says I need the second y coordinate for us, that's -7, minus the first y coordinate for us, which is y1, which is -3. In the basement, we have the second x coordinate, which is 5, minus the first x coordinate, which is 0. So we're going to go straight across. -7 minus -3. Well, two minuses are going to change that to be a 4 negative. And 5 minus 0 is 5. So see, we got 4/5, -4/5, whether you go up and over and think about a positive and negative, or whether you just grab two coordinates, forget all the running and rising, and put these two coordinates into this slope formula. So we've got all the ingredients to write our equation. That's what they want us to do. So y is equal to, well, our slope is -4/5 x, and our y-intercept is -3. So that's the equation of this line right here. So I'm hoping we have one for you to practice. Yep, I do. Okay, so here's one to practice. And I'm going to try to close in on this so you can see actual numbers here. And I'll try to make these bigger. Okay. Yes. Okay. The easiest one to find out is where's the y-intercept. So that's right here at -3. So your b is -3. The slope we're going to try to figure out. So I'll put my slope down here. All right, so pause the video and either try to count this out or use that slope formula. Either way, you'll still get to the same destination. Okay, so if you're back, I'm going to count it out first. This is the lowest dot as far as if you're looking at this from top to bottom. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go here. So I'm going to go up 2, which means I'm rising +2, and then I'm running right. When you go right, it's positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so my slope is going to be 2/8, which reduces to 1/4. Now, if you don't like doing that, let's try using the slope formula. So what's this point here? This point right here is 0, -3. We'll call that xy in the first set of coordinates, or first coordinate. This next one is, I think that's -8, -5. Okay, so -8, -5. We'll call that x and y, but we'll call those sub 2's because we're using that as our second coordinate. Okay, here goes the formula. y2, which is -5, minus y1, which is -3, over, let's see here, -8 minus 0. Okay, up top, two negatives are going to make that positive, but -5 plus 3 is -2 over -8 minus 0, which is -8. Okay, what do we know about a negative divided by a negative? They're going to be positive. There's the two eighths, and we can reduce that to 1/4. So any which way you want to skin that cat, you can either try to count it out or just straight up use the formula. Let's write this equation out. Y equals 1/4 x minus 3. So hopefully you got that. Hopefully you tried to do that on your own and got 1/4 x minus 3. Okay, the next level. Write the equation of the line when they just give you 2 points. Okay. Well, in this case, we need to find our slope, which is m, and we need to find b, which is our y-intercept. Okay, let's label these coordinates because this is all we got to work with. X, y, first, second, second. Let's use that slope formula to find our slope. Remember y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1? Let's do it. So m equals, let me set up my formula. The second y coordinate is 4, minus the first y coordinate is 2. The second x coordinate is 5, minus the first y coordinate is -1. Okay, 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus -1, well, that turns positive, turns into a 6, and that becomes 1/3. Okay, so our slope is 1/3. Now let's use this equation on itself because we found the y-intercept. Excuse me, we found the slope. We have to go after the y-intercept. So pick a coordinate to plug in for your y and x temporarily. I'm going to use this one here because this one has a negative sign in it and I really don't want to fool around with that. So I'm going to do a 4 for my y equals 1/3 is the m times x, which is 5, plus b. Okay, so we're going to do 1/3 times 5, which becomes 5/3 plus b. All right, and 1/3 times 5, when I did that, is just like this, times 5 over 1, becomes 1 times 5 equals 5, and 3 times 1 equals 3. Now I'm going to subtract 5/3 from this side so I can figure out what b is. Well, b is going to be whatever 4 minus 5/3 is. So if you remember with fractions, you got to have the same common denominator. So this whole 4 is not going to work. 4 over 1 doesn't have a common denominator with 3, but I can make it 3 by multiplying the top and the bottom by 3. So that becomes 12 over 3 minus 5 over 3. And think about this, 12 over 3 is really still 4. It's just that now we've written 4 so that it has a common denominator with 5/3. So when you subtract the fractions, you're just going to do 12 minus 5, which is 7 over 3. So 7/3 is equal to b. So this is an ugly old um, linear equation. So y equals, what did we find our slope to be? Our slope was 1/3, and our y-intercept was 7/3. So this is our final equation, but we had to really dig for that. We had to find our slope first. Then we had to use that slope along with picking one of these coordinates to insert into this equation to help us go find our b. And then we got stuck in fraction land too, which is not everyone's cup of tea. All right, I think we got one for you to practice. Yeah, so this video, I think we're going to do this one to practice, and then I have a couple real world evaluating functions, and then I think that's it. So hold tight. Try to do this on your own, so come back and see me. All right, so I'm going to come back and see where you are. I put these two coordinates into the slope formula. I ended up getting a half for my slope. And then I just picked this coordinate to use in the formula to find if I'm missing b. They're all negative, so there's really not a good coordinate that I can pick. So I put -4 in for y, a half in for slope, -1 in for x plus b. -1 times a half is a negative a half. And then I'm just going to add this half over. So b is going to be whatever -4 over 1 plus a half is. Oop. Okay, now you can't add fractions or subtract them without a common denominator. So I'm going to make this a 2, which is going to make this 2 times -4 is -8 over 2 plus a half. That's going to be equal to b. And think about this, -8 over 2 is still -4. So we just changed -4 into a fraction that has the same common denominator as the fraction we're trying to add it to. Then you're just going to go across the top. -8 plus 1 is -7. Keep the 2. So -7/2 equals b. So here's another ugly old slope-intercept formula. So we got y equals a half is our slope of x minus 7/2 is our y-intercept. And that is what they're looking for. All right, hopefully you got that right. If you got all the way through but had some issues with the fractions, just make sure to give yourself some grace. It's okay. Fractions are not everyone's friends. Fractions are not our favorite F word. Okay, the last things in this video we're going to talk about is writing and evaluating a function that models a real-world situation. Okay, so Hershey Park, we know, charges an admission fee of, well, I know it's more than $50, but for this problem, we'll say it's 50. Let C be the cost in dollars of admission for P people. Write an equation relating C to P. Then use the equation to find the cost of 19 people. So we need to write an equation first, then use the equation to find the cost for 19 people. So don't get caught up in all of this. Just pretend, let's say you were going to Hershey Park and you're taking your friends from church with you. Okay, so there's 19 people going, and it's $50 to go to Hershey Park. What would you do to figure out how much money you need to bring? So I know that you would take 19 people, 19 peeps, and you would multiply them by $50. Okay, so that's going to tell you how much money you would bring. So let me get my calculator out on my cell phone, and I'm going to do 19 times 50. Okay, so that's going to be $950. That's how much you would need to bring just to get 19 people in. But they want us to write this out as an equation. Okay, so C is the cost in dollars is equal to, all right, the cost, which was $950, was equal to what? Well, it was $50 times the number of people. So 50 times P. So the cost to get to Hershey Park is $50, times however many number of people that you're taking. So in Alex, they probably want it nice and clean like this. And if they're using capital letter C, use capital C. If they're using capital P, use capital P. And then if you were to use this cost equation, you would just say, well, cost is 50 times 19, so the cost of admission is $950. So that's what they're looking for. So don't get caught up in these word or story problems. Just pretend this is you and you've got a busload of people, 19 people, and it's going to cost you $50 to get each one of them in. How would you do that mathematically? Figure that out and then think about if they're saying C is the cost in dollars, then it's going to be equal to $50 times every person that you take with you. So don't overthink these. Okay, the last one for this video, LaShonda tutors history. For each hour she tutors, she earns $20. Let A be the amount that LaShonda earns in dollars after tutoring H hours. Write an equation relating A to H. Then use the equation to find out how much LaShonda earns after tutoring for 19 hours. Okay, so if you didn't do any algebra at all, how would you figure out what LaShonda's paycheck should be if she tutored history for 19 hours? Well, you would do 19 times $20, right? So $20 times 19, and my calculator is $380. So we could do this without any algebra. But they want us to write an equation. They're saying A is the amount LaShonda's going to earn. Well, we know she's going to earn 380, so we'll call that A. And she's going to tutor H hours. So for every hour that she tutors, she makes $20. So 20 times H. That's your equation. So it's an equation because it's got an equal sign. A is the amount of money LaShonda's going to bring in after she tutors, and she gets $20 times every hour she's out there tutoring. So you could write this out like this: 20 times 19. The amount of money that LaShonda's going to make is $380. Of course, that's before taxes, but hopefully LaShonda is charging cash and doesn't have to pay taxes. All right, that's it for this video. Hopefully the sound is going to work on this particular video. Bye.